War field stabilized. For the turn of the heat. We gotta move.
Welcome to the State of the Game podcast. It is April the 23rd, 2010. This is episode 3, and we have quite the cast for you guys today. Even bringing in a couple of European players. So to start things off, we always have Sean, Day 9 Plot. What's going on, Sean?
Not much. Just drinking some coffee, getting excited to talk about Starcraft, as usual.
As usual, indeed. So, and also we have Tyler, a.k.a. Nony. What's going on, Tyler?
What's up, man? I'm ready to discuss some major Starcraft 2 shit.
All right, sweet.
I'm so excited, can't you tell?
Yeah, I could tell you really well. And also, our 2 Europeans joining us today is Jonathan, a.k.a. Jinro. What's going on, Jinro?
I'm just hitting refresh, waiting for the European patch, basically.
And last but not least, we have Dario, a.k.a. the Little One. What's going on, man?
Yeah, basically it's the same stuff with Jonathan, but I'm drinking beer with it.
Sounds like you're in a better situation there than Jinro. So, to start things off, let's go ahead and talk about kind of what we've all been up to and also about some of the tournaments that you guys are going to be playing in the next couple of days. To start things off, I want to talk to Dario. We will be casting the MLG Show Match Series with you tomorrow against Cthon Luck, and you are going to be playing random versus Cthon Luck's T. Looking into this match, I mean, have you watched any of the past MLG shows? Don't feel bad to say no because I understand completely. But are you at all worried about Cthon Luck, or are you just kind of going into it like you go into all your other games?
I seriously don't know how he played. I have never seen a game of him, I have to admit.
Are you going to try to prepare at all, or are you just going to kind of go in and play the game and get it over with?
I really don't like preparing for a special opponent because I like to adapt what I see in the game.
All right.
Damn straight. No metagame.
So Cthon will be playing the Terran race. What do you think is your strongest matchup, being that you do play random? What are you kind of hoping to draw from that random pick?
I believe Zerg vs Terran is my strongest matchup in that case.
Do you have any like special strategies, or are you just gonna kind of play it pretty much like you play all your other ZVT games? Because you're really well known for being kind of unique in a lot of these not crazy, but
Dude,
unorthodox.
crazy.
Okay,
You're
crazy.
Crazy when you play your games. It's always so awesome to get the front row seat. Like, are you still doing like mass Zergling Infestor in the opening in ZVT?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it would be very clever to say that right now, but I like the Infestor play with Terran. And especially with the buff for Infestors now, I believe it will be one of my strongest units.
Yeah, the buff is such bullshit.
Yeah, I agree.
They did not need it.
Yeah, I was
absolutely
really
agree.
surprised by that, yeah.
The mind control is good, but the fungal thing is not good.
So we'll get into the patch notes a little bit later in this. We will be going over patch 9 notes. But one last thing is the show match between White Raw and TLO that Sean, you casted yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
You ended up losing, was it 3-2 or 4-1? I can't remember if you won the last match.
It was 2-3.
Okay. So all I want to talk about is Game 4, because Game 4 is a really, really crazy game. Sean, you actually casted it. Should we spoil it for people out there, or should we just say go watch that game? What do you think, Sean?
I'm all for spoilers. I mean, this isn't getting released for like a day or so, they'll have another day to watch it.
All
right, so
you preface the post about it with go watch this game before you listen to this.
Yeah, that's a good point. So Game 4, I mean, you guys basically, it was a pretty slow game to start off with, and then you just decided to kind of trade bases. And when you saw him going towards your base, were you just kind of like, screw it, I'm going all in, doing exactly what he's doing to me, or what was your thought process there?
He was close to my base, I was close to his base. It was an obvious decision for me.
And then the last thing, I think probably the highlight of that match was when he had his mothership out, and Sean, you were going crazy. I'm pretty sure you were speechless when this happened with the
I had
vortex.
a few words.
Well, no, the few words were like, "Oh my God," over and over. Like,
oh yeah, yes,
probably
indeed.
about 10 times over and over. because he drops the Vortex and Little One kind of does the unorthodox thing and moves all of his units into it, which is actually really the smartest thing he can do there. And he ends up winning that fight just by simply killing the mothership because he had a ton of Marines there. And then he just wipes out Whitehall after that. So that was an incredible match, I think. Sean, do you have anything to say about that, or do you think I've hyped it well enough to where people will go watch the VODs?
Well, the big thing, the question I have for you, Dario, the Little One, you opened up with a 7 Rax Reaper just to do some harassment. What's your main transition out of that into the mid game? Because I mean, what blew my mind so much about that game is that you opened with that psychotically aggressive opening, and then just went into normalcy right after that by getting your second barracks up. Actually, I think 2 more barracks pretty quick, and then expanding right after that. Is that your normal follow through from that, or did you see something that signaled that you should get those extra barracks? Because I do have quite a bit of trouble stabilizing after an early Reaper harass like that.
I have to admit, I never played this opening before, so I was kind of improvising.
Wow. So, do you just go into games and just think of random things that you can do, or I mean, that just seems crazy to me that you would just go into a match and just do something completely random that you've never tried before.
Well, it was planned out as I was 0-3, and I haven't had any chance with Terran versus White War before, so I sort of have to improvise a little bit to get an edge.
All right. So I mean, I guess that's one way to win some games out there. Try not to overthink a lot of the matches, I guess, is what the Little One is saying. But moving on to these other tournaments that I think everyone in here but myself is going to be playing in is the HDH. Well, thank God I'm not playing it, but the HDH tournament. Sean, I guess we'll start off with you. You're going to actually be playing your brother.
Yeah. I don't like playing my brother in tournaments. Because, I mean, what? Oh, yeah, seriously, my brother and I, we, grew up playing everything against each other, from 2D fighting games to, GoldenEye, which, by the way, License to Kill Pistols in the Archives is, the best mode ever on that.
Right. True.
And then, we kind of like to avoid each other in tournaments, that way we can do, the supportive brotherly role. And then, we get put into this, and I think In Control did the brackets or something like that, and he's just Dan Taste his first round. I was like, shit.
They didn't randomize those?
No.
I don't know. I
actually said they
doubt.
didn't. They said it didn't.
That's kind of weird.
Yeah, they didn't want to have, Whitera against Hydra round 1.
Why not, man?
Well, they want to save a matchup like that for the finals. I can sort of understand them. I'm pretty sure, if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure they wrote this on the forum. They said since this is their first thing, it's some sort of a test run. They want to, have a controlled environment.
Oh, they paired me against my brother, those bastards. Because the thing is that, no matter what happens, I lose. Because, if I win, then everyone will be like, oh my god, Day is definitively better than Tasteless, when, I actually go about half and half with him in the games we, mess around with on BNet. And then if, he wins, then I lost to my brother, and that's totally fucking unacceptable, man. I'm not supposed to lose to Nick, come on. So... oh god, I'm just dreading it. I haven't even contacted him yet to try to arrange it, but he is playing Protoss and Zerg as opposed to straight random, and I'm playing straight random, so hopefully I can abuse that a little bit. Pull out my inner Little One.
Does he play PvT or CVT?
He plays Protoss versus Terran.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good for me.
Which we can transition right into saying that Nick did manage to beat his Korean opponent in Protoss vs. Terran in the Stars War, USA versus Korea versus USA.
Syria, right?
China.
Syria.
Yeah, versus Syria, man. He just got an immortal up there and snapped a neck. And then he started giggling on stage.
That's why would you name a tournament that? It's so...
Stars War? It's been around for a long time. It's a big Warcraft 3 event.
Oh, okay. I guess that kind of makes sense, but...
And it's Stars War because it's stars, it's an invite tournament, so it's famous people playing.
Right. I guess it's just hard to say. That's why I hate the name. So, yeah. Because I mean, you want to say Star Wars?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure. I wonder if the announcers ever. Well, it's obviously not Star Wars for them, but. Anyways, moving on. Jinro, you're actually doing a lot of the talking, so let's talk about your matchup in the HDH Invitational. Who are you actually going to be playing? I'm not sure. I don't have
White
the brackets.
Draw.
White Draw.
Oh wow! So I mean, he's been doing really, really well lately. Are you worried for this, or are you preparing for it, or what's kind of your mindset right now?
I'm preparing for it, and his games against the little one obviously worry me, and as do my games against the little one's Protoss, because it's just a tough matchup right now, I think. It's not tough because I don't think it's like imbalanced, but it's really hard to find out what the Protoss player is doing.
Right.
There's like so many options for him, and you have options against all of his options that are fine, but it's a huge difference if you try to counter like the 4 warp gate build. The difference between countering that and countering a fast Dark Templar build is huge, and he can proxy anything he wants, and your SCV dies instantly because Stalker kills it in 5 shots, and is faster than it. And if you scan, well, he could have built his gateways on the other side of the map. They are warp gates, so it doesn't matter. That's the problem for me right now.
So are you just going to be mass gaming some TVP, or how are you going to try to prepare for that?
Yeah, I've been playing a lot with Nazgul and Little One.
Dude, and if you want, I'm free after this podcast.
Let's do it.
The first time in 2 weeks. Haven't actually played a single game in like 2.5 weeks, so...
Wow. You've probably casted about, 30 or 40 matches, though?
Yeah, I do about 15 casts a week.
That's ridiculous.
Pretty stupid, yeah. I really need to cut back so I don't die.
You gotta learn...
Paid for it.
No, it's all been free so far.
Yeah, that's the
you
worst.
should be paid for it.
Thank you. Yes, if you'd like to make a donation, yes, please, just send it my way.
All right, so moving on, Nony, we actually lost you in the call there, but we did a smooth transition, and I don't even think the people in the call realized that you were missing, so that's good. But who are you actually going to be playing in the HGH Invitational first round?
I'm up against Moonglade.
Ooh, kind of a not unknown player, but a little bit under the radar. So, are you worried for this matchup, or are you just kind of going to play the game, I guess?
Well, I'm not that worried about it, but like compared to how confident I felt going into Brood War matches, I'm not very confident. So I had like 100% confidence in Brood War, and now with Starcraft 2, it's just like nobody knows what they're doing really. So I have kind of the general worry that I think everybody does. Nobody's really super confident, and they're like absolutely confident that they absolutely know everything about what their strategy is. So I still have some good PvZ builds figured out and stuff. So I think I'll do all right.
Now, you've been actually rather busy lately, and I don't think you've played as much as you would have liked to. Do you think that's at all going to affect your matches going into this tournament, or are you worried at the fact that you haven't been able to play as much as some of these other players?
Yeah, I think I'd have to be really lucky to get far into this tournament. I don't know. I'm just not good enough to like guarantee myself a win against anybody. Like pretty much anybody in the bracket could beat me. So it'd just be a matter of luck how far I can get through.
All right. Well, I mean, I guess good luck. And last but not least, we've got the little one. Now, who are you going to be playing first round? Because again, I don't have the brackets up. So well prepared for this podcast.
I'm going to play Artosis.
Oh, okay. So Artosis is pretty well known right now in StarCraft. Well, in general, he's well known, but for StarCraft 2, he's been playing a lot of matches, publicized matches. Are you at all worried, or are you just going to kind of go in like every other game, like you said before, and just play the match and not really do that much preparing for it?
Yeah, well, I'm going to with my basic strategy, just prepare the matchup and not the player.
Right. All right, so do you guys actually have when all these matches are going to be played, or have you not set up any of the times? Because I know one of the things is that they're going to be streaming the replays of these matches and not doing it live because they're afraid of people stream watching. Do you think that is kind of a smart thing to do, Sean, or do you think they should give the people what they want and kind of do a live stream?
I mean, I think it is pretty... It's pretty important, I think, to have live coverage just for, like, the good of the game. It's just so exciting when it's live. I mean, like, I can watch games after the fact on YouTube and just feel fine. But, man, if you stay up till, like, 3 in the morning to watch, like, an epic best-of-5 finals match, you, like, really feel the adrenaline. But definitely the whole, like, observer cheating thing is, like, kind of huge. Because, I mean, like, yesterday when I was casting Little One versus White Ra, Little one, you pause the game, you're like, some guy just told me that you expanded. And White Raw was like, hey, no problem, don't worry about it. Like, and I mean, now that, there's, they have D&D on. Finally, thank God.
Oh, it's actually working now?
Oh, yes, it's great. There's actually a hack that you can do where you open up 6 chat windows, and then when someone messages you, it says, this user has too many chat windows open, and you can sort of cheat like that. Yeah, I found it out, like, the day after Patch 9 came out, and I was like, bleh. But, but I personally prefer live, but I think it's so smart for 2 reasons. One, there's obviously no cheating, but the second one is just that streaming in really high HD quality is just like so unstable and so hard. So I think it, results in a lot less problems.
Right. So some of the other tournaments out there, are there any ones that you guys want to talk about specifically, or should we go ahead and move on to the patch changes? If you want to talk about any tournament, just go ahead and say so now, because I'm not really sure. There's so many out there, I'm not really sure which ones to cover exactly.
Well, there's the Racer Domination, I guess, but I can't really think of many others.
How far along is that? I know, Sean, you've been casting some of those matches, and some of them you had to cast on the Good Luck Have Fun stream because your stream was down.
Those guys are my heroes, man. Oh my god, have they ever jump immediately to help me whenever there's a problem. But sorry, go ahead with the...
Yeah, I mean...
Your turn.
I actually don't know the schedule for that, so I think this was the first week that matches were playing of all the first round. Am I correct in saying that?
I think the second well, the staggered Group A and B played first, and I think they're on the second half of the groups now.
All right, I'm not actually sure. Maybe
I have it open right now. Yeah, they're playing Group C and D right now. So it looks like Braddock and Little One are at the top of Group D. It doesn't look like very much of Group C has been played.
But there's a really interesting situation in Group C, because the Little One beat Braddock and Cole, but he won 2-1, and then he lost 0-2 to
Exactly,
Lucifer.
yeah.
So he could still lose if Lucifer beats Cole with a big 2-0. No, actually, if Lucifer beats Cole, he loses, which is terrible.
Yeah. I believe I don't have a lot of chances to advance.
No, you have to coach Cole. He has to beat you.
Sure.
Teach him the cheese, man. Tell him to abuse that the new speedling bug, the circling bug.
Awesome idea.
One thing I want to talk about, we see all these tournaments popping up. There's so many different formats. I mean, there's group play. I don't think we've seen a round-robin tournament yet. There's all bracket play. Then you have these show matches. What do you guys think, or what do you guys prefer? This might be an individual preference in terms of the tournament format. So why do you prefer that? Everyone prefers group play?
Group play.
Yeah, it's more fun. You get to play everyone, and it's not just one bad matchup and you're out.
I like the brackets. I don't really like the group play as much. Brackets, you get to hype up your match, I think. With the group play, it's it's kind of a little bit of everything. Everyone plays everyone. But with the brackets,
including their brother.
Yeah. With the bracket, you get these just single matches, one at a time, and you can focus on them and get more hype. I think it's more exciting for me as a player.
Yeah, but you get that in the next round. And with the groups, you get a huge variety of replays, matchups, everything. I like it.
Yeah, me too. It's cool because you can't play more than one game, even if you lose your first game, and you still have a chance to return.
Yeah, basically.
And
that.
it feels like a really nice broth, It starts out and it's sort of simmering in the group stages because you don't really know who's going to turn out on top. If you go right into the brackets, I mean, dumb things can happen first round. It's just oh my god, this player, he's completely eliminated, and then he's forgotten about, and no one ever remembers him if he's out first round. But I like the group play, it stretches it out a little bit more. I
think I like the bracket for the reasons you guys don't like it. Or I don't like group play for the reasons that you do like it. I don't know. I like a little more hard hitting competition where you can't just mess up and then all of a sudden you're out in the first round and nobody cares about you.
Well, I really like what you were saying earlier, that you don't have 100% confidence coming into a match, because that is the biggest struggle I have had. It is just so weird to feel my own mental state, because in StarCraft, I can sit down and play against anyone and I feel fine. even in like tournaments, even in like live tournaments. But now, like, you know, I like sit down and I'm paired against someone I've never heard of, and I'm like, oh my god, he's slightly favored, gonna be an uphill battle, you know, and I gotta like try to clutch down, focus, and
most of the time that stuff is just completely like, at least in the placement matches, I've seen that it's just like completely based off of nothing.
I don't fucking know how to play. Like, even in practice games against my brother, like I was playing with him, and he just ran in with a bunch of Zerglings and killed me, and I was like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. And he's like, yeah, it's stupid. I really shouldn't have done it. I'm not going to learn anything. And I'm like, wow, oh, okay. And then now I'm playing against other people. I'm like, oh, God, I hope this build doesn't lose to a bunch of Zerglings. Because that's the sort of thing that you get from thousands of games of experience. And after April 30th passes, and I'm done with my grad school for the semester, then I'm going to get to play thousands of games. But, you know, until then, I just kind of have this sort of confidence going into a lot of matches.
Well, the favored tag, it often says both players are favored. I've had so many situations where someone is like, oh, you're favored against me. I'm like, no, you are favored against me. It's messy. It's buggy.
Yeah, I don't know if they've actually gotten that system to work 100% yet, but I haven't played any in patch 9 yet, so maybe it's fixed, or maybe it's better now. So
there's an internal coin that they flip. Oh, looks like he's favored.
I actually believe how that happens, because you have an estimated score, and if both players have a higher estimated score than their own score, they're probably each favored.
Ah.
Okay, see,
you just blew my mind. I don't know what you just said.
Wait, you mean the estimate, like, you mean if you have a higher estimated score than the other's current score, you are favored, and both players can have a higher estimated score than their current score?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I think I understand what you mean.
That makes a little bit more sense, I guess, now that why people are more favored than the others, because maybe it's just saying in the placement matches that someone's favored over the other person because the other person doesn't even have a score to match up against yet.
Yeah.
So.
It's science.
Like if both players are 1,500 points and they both have an estimated level of 1,700, maybe the system says both are favored against each other.
Something like that. Either way, BattleNet's basically Skynet. I'll just let it do its thing.
All right, so were you going to say something, Jinro, or can we move on?
Yeah, well, if it's sort of on the topic of BattleNet, I'd like to complain about the recent issues that Europe has made me realize how much I dislike the division system, because everyone kept getting reset over and over again. In the end, I was in like division 63 or something, and it made me realize when someone comes to this game in 3 years, he's gonna maybe win all these placement games, and he's gonna end up in division 500. How does this make someone feel better about their score than having an overall ladder would?
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. We'll see how often they. I mean, I'm sure they'll be doing different seasons like they do with the Warcraft 3 thing. But I mean, that was that a yearly thing or a 9-month thing? I guess every BlizzCon they would do the ladder resets. So.
Well, actually, I got the chance to ask this exact question to Dustin Browder when I was at Blizzard on Monday, and he said that he didn't make any guarantees because obviously I don't think he was allowed to or something like that, but he basically implied that for the top level players, they want some way for like high level platinum players to be able to compare one another cross league. But what they don't want is for someone in like the copper division, 57, and he's ranked maybe 20th there, or he can look up the global ladder and find out that he's like 8 billionth. It's like he just doesn't need that, But
if I was a copper guy, I would be so fucking pissed off that I couldn't see my global rank.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think the global rank would be the best thing. So,
well, I think the thing is, it's not the skill level of the player; it's the goals of the player. And if it's someone who's trying to improve, and they have a competitive mindset, even if they're really bad at the moment, then they want to see the global ranking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sean, I'm curious, did he actually know that you're Sean Day9 Plot? Or was he just kind of answering your questions like you're another journalist or something?
I don't know. He probably looked at me and he just judged me. That was fans.
He's kind of an intimidating person. I've talked to him a couple times at BlizzCon before. And
he seemed like really nice. He seemed, just a little, stressed because there was like 1,000 press interviews I had to go to. And I was wearing the micro macro shirt from my brother's t-shirt store. And I was just like, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I was shameless this morning when I put this on, and I was just like asking all the hardcore competitive questions. Seriously, I was such a stereotype.
Maybe stressed is a better word than intimidating, because he is a nice person, talking to him at BlizzCon. Were you guys the only kind of competitive scene group there? Or were there any other... I'm not sure if anyone else was invited to go from the competitive world.
Yeah, I mean, there were a good bit of fan sites just asking, pretty normal questions. I don't know, it's just it's as normal as you'd think, people asking questions about the map editor, questions about having, online replays and chat channels where they can hang out with their clans and how clans work, and whether or not they're going to stop making patches that nerf Protoss. And, I think I was probably the most hardcore one there, asking how they go about balancing and how they're going to go about with, the tournament system and all that sort of stuff. But
right,
I can't actually remember your original question. I'm just sort of talking right now. What was the question?
Mine or Jinro's? Because I think Jinro.
Oh yeah, it was the global thing. But yeah, the global thing might happen. The global ladder ranking. Yeah.
And then last but not least about that, because I don't want to take too much thunder from your Team Liquid beta podcast that you're going to be doing soon, hopefully. But what was the most obnoxious question that someone asked there? Can you remember?
Hey, he's going to know. I want to let you know that you said that and immediately one popped into my head. I mean, okay, you know what? I'll say it. Now, honestly, this question is a reasonable question. But because I'm a competitive player, I didn't fucking care, right? This guy raised his hand, and he's just like, how many minutes of cinematics are there gonna be, and how many cinematics are there? And I'm like, well, I don't care, because that doesn't help me rape nerds. I don't need to know that. He was like a lore guy. He wanted to know about the story and all this stuff. And here I am in my micro macro shirt, like an idiot. Like, when are the F keys gonna come back? So that was pretty much the encapsulation of my journey.
Nice. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the patch balance changes. There were a ton of other changes, obviously, with the map editor coming in, a couple of hotkey changes, and several things like that. But we want to focus in on the balance changes. So first, but not... Okay, I'm just going to say first. Let's do a retake on that. First, we're going to talk about Terran.
Let's talk about... say first, but not least?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's been a long day, I guess. Anyways... Marauder changes, concussor shells research cost decrease from 180 seconds to 50, 60 seconds. And Jinro, I guess, being the main Terran player here, what do you think about this change?
I've been trying to mech for the past 2 patches, so I guess it's going to make it easier to transition back into biomech, because I don't think pure mech is good. Well, I'm mostly disappointed about the changes, not because of what the changes were, but because of what they weren't. But from what I've heard, it's just because they're lagging behind in the things we're complaining about now is not it's not something they're working on now. It's not something they patched. The things they patched is something we complained about 2 weeks ago. If that makes sense.
Right. I understand. Nony, I mean, it's Protoss. Marauders, obviously, pretty much used in every matchup, but I think Mass Marauders is pretty... I guess, standard against Protoss in the TVP matchup. What do you think about that change? Does it kind of irk you the wrong way, or you just don't really care? You knew something like that was going to happen sooner than later.
Well, I feel like now that, first there was the problem with Marauders, and then they made the first change to make concussive shells a research ability, and then they made this change, and now it's so cheap and it's so fast that it makes me feel like their only concern was the Marauder rush, like the ultra fast, proxy racks and go attack with Marauders. Because now what it's ended up being with this research is, someone who's just going to do a standard Marauder build, it almost doesn't matter at all. Having the research there, it just doesn't matter. It's not an issue. So the only thing that Blizzard ended up affecting was that ultra-fast Marauder rush, and I think what most people feel about Marauders is they have broader problems. At least I know in PvT, definitely, Terrans aren't happy with Marauders. Of course, they feel like the matchup is really difficult, but from what I've heard, most Terrans want Marauders nerfed a bit and then have other units buffed a bit so that they don't have to build Marauders all the time. But these little changes that we've seen with the concussive shell research have really amounted to nothing, and it's really just that specific super fast Marauder rush that it's affected.
Right. Sean? Go ahead, Jinro. No, go ahead.
I don't even think Marauders are a problem, as Nony said. The problem is that if you try to do anything else, I mean, this is what irks me about the patch, and the past patches too. They have lowered the time for mech, they have lowered the cost of the factory, but they've still done nothing to help you. Like, you don't have any kind of... If you don't go Marauders, you don't have any unit you can just sink your minerals into. You have to make tanks which take up all your gas, all your supply, and and have the mobility of a snail. So you have to mass Marauders. And yeah. That wasn't really very eloquent.
Okay, so this is a question I have about that. So think about the Dragoon for Protoss in Brood War. You kind of have... Well, I guess not against Zerg. No, I guess I am full of it. Well, I mean, for instance, in Terran vs. Protoss, if the Terran makes Vultures, you kind of like absolutely have to make Dragoons.
Yeah.
And it sounds weird to put it like that because you just pretty much have the Dragoons anyways, but I wonder if you think that the Marauder has a similar role to the Dragoon in Brood War, where it's just very common, it's like the center staple of an army, and to not resist it.
Yeah, I think it's fine the way the Marauder is. The problem is that the other units are not really interesting enough to do something. I mean, Protoss players complain, all the Terran does is mass Marauders. And then you ask, what do you want me to do? You want me to go mass Banshee? What? I don't have the gas to do anything else. Give me a free third base, then I'll go mech.
As a Terran player, I mean, what are some of the units that you would like to, or what are some of the changes, rather, to some of these other units that you would like to see, something that you would kind of want to add into your army composition to where you don't have to rely on Marauders so much, Jinro?
Well, I would like, first of all, I would like the siege tank to cost a little less gas. That's really the biggest issue for me with the siege tank. Second, I guess I would like some kind of mineral sink. Like, the Hellion is not a bad unit, but if you compare it to the Vulture has spider mines, which makes it capable of dealing with units that its normal attack doesn't deal with well. Like, you can lay spider mines and delay against Dragoons or something. But the Hellion can only kill light units, it can't do anything else. I would like some kind of ability on the Hellion that would let me use it as a mineral sink without dying to anything that isn't a zealot.
Right. So does anyone else have anything they want to say about the topic? All right, that's long enough.
I add one thing. I think currently the only way to viably play mech is to play extremely, play like Flash. You just turtle base after base after base. Because as soon as you try to attack, you have absolutely no mobility and no ability to control where the Protoss attacks you from. You have no real map control or no... Yeah. That's the difference between SC1 mech and SC2 mech.
Yeah, but
a game that's much faster.
I don't even believe it's possible to play like that because Protoss is so mobile right now because he can plink, he can warp in units, he can have 30 warp gates, and as soon as the battle starts, he can add 30 new units if his supplier drops from 200 to 160.
And he can add them in your base if he wants to.
Yeah.
Right. One of the questions I have, Jinro, and this is probably going to validate if I'm terrible or if this is actually a decent strategy that was used against me, but I was playing PvT the other day, and he opened up Thors, did the whole Thor dropping thing. I tried to harass as much as possible, but he transitioned into Banshees and had this Thor, Banshee, and Marine unit composition. Have you ever done anything like that?
Yes, I tried that a lot. So I played against Hazelobs in the Razor Domination, and I basically tried exactly that. Right. Banshee for Hellion. The problem is, Banshees die to feedback, Thors die to feedback, Marines die to Storm, So basically, the High Templar kills everything, everything in that strategy.
Yeah, I tried to end up going that, but he just had way too much at the time when I got it, so I got destroyed. But I noticed that was really, really strong.
I think it's strong. What did you say?
Getting a ghost, trying to throw an EMP in there?
Yeah, but the ghost also dies to feedback.
The feedback range is longer than the ghost EMPs.
I thought it was, but someone told me it's not. I don't know.
Really?
Can anyone confirm?
I was fairly certain that feedback had a longer range than...
Yeah, me too. But someone said it's 9 versus 10 in the EMP's favor.
Huh.
Yeah, but the EMP is not instant.
Okay, that explains it.
Okay, yeah, there you go. The little one always busting in with the correct answers and facts to everything. It's nice to have him around. It's the show's personal fact checker. So moving on, we'll have the Protoss balance changes. So I guess we'll go to Nony for this to kind of have the first word. The Immortal build time increased from 40 to 55. Immortals have kind of become the really, really standard opener for Protoss just because of how important the Observer is. So you might as well just keep building Immortals after you have that unit producing building out. What do you think about this change, Nony?
I think it's a good change. I've always been kind of surprised at how fast Immortals build, especially when you chrono boost them. It's kind of ridiculous.
Chrono boosted, it's ridiculous. I agree.
Yeah, and so I think it's fine. I mean, there's a couple builds I would do where I would kind of rely on defensively getting an Immortal out like super quick, or like I could delay investing in a certain strategy, and then once I got some scouting in, I would have the comfort of knowing if I needed to get an Immortal out quick, I could do it. And now it's a little more difficult to do that. But that kind of bothers me. But in general, I think it's a good change because they were just building way too fast. And if you want to get out that many Immortals, you should really have to pay for another production facility. You should have to get another robotics.
Right. Now, I haven't actually played Patch 9, so I guess this is directed at Sean, Nony, and Little One, whoever wants to jump in, who's actually played. How much does this affect the timing push that Tosses are so familiar with, or Zergs are so familiar with, I should say, against Zerg in a PvZ matchup where you rush with like 1 or 2 Immortals with the rest of your forces? Is it hurting it at all, or is it still as strong as it ever was?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and pass on that one because I never really liked that strategy. So I like never did it, and I kind of just noticed that Zergs would expect it to come, and I'd just be like, why are you building all these Sunkens or whatever they're called?
Right.
In Starcraft 2. I don't even know.
Spine crawlers.
Spine crawlers, okay, yeah. And so I'd just be like, what are you doing? And I'd just expand and stuff. So I don't know. And if anyone else has experience with the Immortal push...
Sean, have you played it all? You said
I haven't played the patch, but I have an opinion similar to Nony's. I feel like it was the first style of play that people discovered was just a good timing push. If you just go Gateway Core, then Robo and Gateway at the same time, and you get Warp Gates in the midst of all this. And a lot of players took it to an extreme where they would get 2 or 3 Immortals and then 3 or 4 Warp Gates. And just try to barrel the Zerg to death, right? Just constantly send in more and more shit till Zerg eventually dies. And most Zergs, like Nony said, are expecting it now, so they'll have a lot of Zerglings or they'll have Hydralisks already. More commonly, though, it's just a ton of spine crawlers. Right. So I think that with this change, I hope players sort of back off on it a little bit. Whenever I would do it, I would only have 2 gateways, because then I could get an expansion up soon, because I'm like the most expo-hungry player I know, so like any build I do is just trying to set up a new expansion. So I think that with this change, people are going to be more encouraged to do that sort of thing, but I still think something like 2 gateways with robotics facility, just sort of poking at him with a little force, forcing him to make more defenses than he wants, I think that can't be bad.
Right. Jinro, Little One, do you guys have any feelings on this change? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Or
I believe... I can rely on what Nazgul told me because he's a little bit of an expert in that field. He told me that there's a little bit room for the longer building time of the Immortal because now he has to chrono boost his robotics instead of the gates, but it's still okay. And we also have a little bit of a nerf to the Sunkens. so I guess that kind of makes up for it.
Right. The sunken change being the attack period decreased from 1.6 to, decreased from 1.6 to 1.85. So
yeah,
you should just call it cooldown instead of attack period.
That's weird. Oh yeah, that's right. It does say attack period and all those things.
Because someone pointed out that they said usually uses cooldown, and now they call it attack period all of a sudden. A bit confusing.
Maybe it's just a new variable that they put in the map editor or something, so people would understand it better.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Jinro, do you have any feelings of the Immortal change in the PvP or TvP matchup rather?
I actually haven't played with Immortals yet this patch, but I never felt Immortals were a problem. Like even when you go mech, the Immortal wasn't a problem. The Immortal was fine, I think. You had a lot of tools to counter it. The problems were the more mobile units. It's the Immortal. Sure, it's a good unit, but it didn't break anything. I don't think it will break anything now either. I mean, it's worse. So.
Yeah. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to the Zerg balance changes, who actually received the most out of all the races. Start off with, I guess would probably be the least biggest change, if that makes sense. The Infested Terrans damage increased from 5 to 8, and speed decreased from 1.5 to 0.9375. I wonder why would they decide on such an obscure number?
I
What?
I have a big issue with this balance change. The issue is the Infested Terran has not been removed from the game. It's terrible.
I don't think I've ever seen it used in any showcase or any casted match before.
Well, the little one used it, but...
Oh, of course.
Yeah, of course. But it's such a boring unit. It's a Pinocchio doll walking around. It's slow, it's weak, it's uninspired. And I wouldn't feel this bad about it if it hadn't initially been such an awesome spell. If anyone remembers the initial Infested Terran version, which was you took over a barracks and you could produce Infested Terrans.
Or a command center?
No. In Starcraft 2, you had the Infested would burrow, walk into a base, cast like some dark swarmish thing over the Terran barracks, and it'd take over all the barracks, and you could produce from them.
Huh.
I mean, obviously it's too strong, but it's a bit more inspired than, hey, it's 25 mana, summon Infested Terran. I don't know.
Dario, I mean, Jinro was just saying that you use this unit, so I guess you probably have the best, or the most experience with it. Are you at all affected by this change, or what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, well, I only use it when my Infestors don't have enough energy to cast any other spell. I don't really have an opinion about Infested Terrans. They seem kind of weird because they only live for like 10 to 15 seconds or something and don't deal a lot of damage. And yeah, well, they seem kind of pointless.
Yeah. I mean, the other two spells on the Infestor are just so much more of an actual spell. It just seems like they should either make this like a free one use for each Infestor or something like that so people will actually use it. Right now, I don't really see the use for it other than what you just said. So, Sean, do you have any feelings about this?
Well, because I'm trying to think about when you would want to opt for a bunch of Infested Terrans over fungal growth or no parasite. Excuse me. Because, I mean, fungal growth is really good against big clusters of small units. And neural parasite is really good against, small numbers of big units, like Thors or something like that.
Right.
So, I mean, against those clusters, I desperately want to use fungal growth. That's obviously good. But, if there's a Thor there, I'm not going to opt to throw out 2 Infested Terrans when I could just neural parasite. And I suppose that there are some compositions where, let's say I have only Hydralisks and no Roaches, so I don't really have any just units to absorb damage in the front. I want to throw out some Infested Terrans. But, I mean, everything I'm saying is just me theorizing. I've just never thought to myself, I need to get some Infested Terrans here. And I even am having a hard time concocting a situation where you'd want to use it myself. So I don't really know. I guess I don't have an opinion on it.
Yeah.
You can.
There's one use, if you, for example, fungal growth a bunch of Mutalisks in your base and you don't have any anti-air in your base, you could summon some Infested Terrans and shoot down the Mutalisks. But it's really the only use I can see.
Yeah, other than that, I don't really know. So I guess we'll move on.
I think. Whoa.
Oh, okay.
What about my opinion? I
You're a
got something to
Protoss,
say.
so you don't have an opinion. Go ahead, Nony.
No, I think, well, the only thing I can think of for it is, well, and I don't know why you'd be doing this, but if
Awesome.
the situation came up, well, I mean, the little
I'm
one
going to destroy all validity of what I'm about to say, but
the little one kind of did it. I mean, if you have infestors harassing undefended expansion or a very not well defended expansion, I mean, you could do the infested Terrans and then do like one fungal growth to paralyze all the workers, and then the infested Terrans finish them off instead of doing
Infestor
two
drop,
fungal
basically.
growths. Yeah, and I think someone did the math, and it was like if you have 3 infestors and they all cast infested Terrans, then they can like snipe like a Nexus or something. I don't know
I think
how
they
quick.
said they had to have full energy though. Didn't they say that?
Yeah. But
It's like
I don't know.
600 mana.
Basically, I see it as the only use of it really is an out of combat spell and more like a harass, which I don't know. It could be used once in a while.
Yeah, I guess with a tunneling clause. Where they can,
yeah,
move
that's
around.
true.
You just run, you pop up, a whole bunch of infested Terrans, and then just scoot away cleverly.
If you play Warcraft 3, there was this spell called Dark Arrow or something. No, Arrow something on the...
Dark Archer or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Celestial era? On the priest? Oh.
No, it's this... the arrow that if you last hit a unit with it, it turned undead, basically. So if you got the last hit on a unit with this ability activated, 2 skeletons would spawn. Or 1 skeleton, I don't know. Dark Ranger, that's the name.
So you're saying...
That would seem like a better implementation of an infestation spell.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how to do it, but it's more inspired than, here's an infested Terran, it walked up from the earth.
Maybe just have it to where, like, when the infested Terran attacks a certain unit, it applies, like, a debuff to it or something, although debuff's probably not the right word. And if it dies in a certain amount of time, then it turns into, like, another infested Terran or something like that.
Yeah, something to give
Although
it
that could probably be abused ridiculously, so...
Fungal growth and infested Terran.
Yeah.
Synergy.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe Blizzard's gonna listen to this, so then we'll see that pop up in patch 10 if there is such a thing. So, moving on, Queen speed off creep decreased from 1.5 to another awesome integer 0.938. Speed on creep unchanged. I think this change was mostly due to this all-in build that a lot of the Koreans were doing, where they would send 2 or 3 queens really early on and kind of do an all-in. But other than that, what do you guys think about this change? As I read Skype to figure out what Dario's saying.
Well, I mean, Dustin Browder actually specifically said that they had to slow the queen down because it was this unstoppable queen Zergling rush, Zerg vs Protoss. Because I mean, a lot of people on the Asia server are just going bonkers with crazy early aggression, and apparently they just realized if they sent some queens in there, you can use their range and a little bit of transfusion to just do a monstrously strong push.
Yeah. So, I mean, other than that, do you think this is going to affect... The only thing I can kind of think of is when you're transitioning the queen from your main to your natural, it's going to be a little bit slower, but other than that, I can't really think of anything.
Did the speed on creep remain the same?
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess it's even more incentive to make creep highways.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm like dealing with getting Dario back in the call, but yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. All right, well, all I had to do was click that. That was a fast restart. Anyways, yeah, so I mean, pretty much understand why that change is there, and I don't think it's going to affect Zerg too much. The next change is the spine crawler attack period decreased from 1.6 to 1.85. We talked about this a little bit, but I guess Nony, since you didn't get an opinion in on the last one, what do you think about this change?
I don't know. To be honest, I don't have a lot of experience with the spine crawlers. I guess they did feel pretty strong in patch 8, and I maybe this will bring him in line a little bit. They were doing some pretty crazy damage, but I do kind of feel like they're still countered by. I mean, like if I get an Immortal in there, they're going down, and if I don't get an Immortal in there, then they should probably stay up pretty well. So I'm not really sure. I'll have to just throw a bunch of units at some spine crawlers and see what happens.
Sean, can you think of any specific examples of why this change was implemented? Or did Dustin say anything when you went to Blizzard HQ?
I don't recall, but I definitely think that it had to do with the Zerg versus Protoss matchup, where Zergs would only build spine crawlers for defense at the start, no other units. Power drones really hard, then get a really strong economy up, and then they would push out with a whole bunch of roaches and all their spine crawlers, and they would wall the Protoss in. And even though Immortals really kill spine crawlers super fast, it was a bit tough because range 7 is pretty big. So it was really easy to cover really narrow chokes on maps like Temple or Steps of War or something like that. So I'm pretty sure it would just be to address that and just to encourage players to make a little bit more units for defense instead of just mass spine crawlerage. And even stuff like the offensive spine crawler on the high ground was a little bit tricky to deal with.
Yeah. Do you think that the strat, like you were just saying, do you think that the strat is going to change at all, where massing spine crawlers so early on and then using them as your actual force once you creep all the way across the map in the mid game? Do you think that strategy is all affected, or do you think that strategy was just there because of what you said, how they were having to mass it so early on, so they were just utilizing what they already had?
Well, I actually think that it's not that they had to use it early on. I think that they planned to use it early on for this huge push. It was like the setup for it. And I think that it's basically a way of saying, yeah, you can still do it, but it's not the easy win-all kind of play. Similar to how, like, the Immortals got delayed by 15 seconds. It doesn't murder Protoss's Immortal timing push against Zerg. It just kind of makes it a little bit tougher, and you have to try a little bit harder. So I'm pretty much fine with that.
All right. Jinro and... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Touching on both the Queen nerf and this nerf, do you know if they fix... if you cancel the hatchery, it would leave behind a small spot of creep. So if you had a Queen with it, you could put on up... what's they called? Creep tumor?
Yeah.
Like, you could do an offensive creep tumor right outside someone's base, for instance, by just cancelling a hatchery. Do you know if they fixed this? Or, because you could use it to, obviously, spine crawl or rush on.
Well, I don't think they fixed it, but because the Queen is so slow on non-creep now, it's kind of useless now.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess you could make like one extra Queen or something and just send it across the map really early on or something. Or save your first 100.
Really build that creep tumor fast, man.
I had actually never heard of that, though. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Dario, do you have... we were talking about the spine crawler and the Queen, like Jinro just said. Do you have any problems or qualms with that?
No, not really. I like that the Queen is slower on normal command now. It makes scouting a little bit easier in Zerg vs. Zerg. Because you could chase overlords with your Queen outside your own base, and that was really weird.
All right. So we'll move on to the Infestor changes. Neural Parasite range increased from 7 to 9, and the Fungal Growth projectile is removed, and now it's just an instantly cast spell, which I didn't actually know it was a projectile. What was the travel time of that? Does anyone know off the top of their heads?
Almost instant.
Yeah. No, not really, because if it was maximum range, it was maybe a half a second.
So, I mean, what do you guys think about these changes? Obviously, both of them are... the Neural Parasite range, 7 to 9, seems like a bigger deal than anything, because you don't have to be at the front of your forces, really. This time you can kind of sit in the back. So I've seen a lot of Infestors just get sniped in these big mid-game pushes. So whoever wants to jump in about that. We don't really have a resident Zerg player, so I don't have a go-to guy.
Yeah, well, I believe it's horrible. And I believe Jinro agrees with me.
Yeah, I think the Fungal Growth change is too good. I think Neural Parasite change might be fine, because they're so easy to kill with like one shot. And they might make them now viable in Zerg vs. Protoss. But for Zerg vs. Terran, any Terran who thinks Fungal Growth was too weak before should just try to play the little one in a late game TBC. I mean, you don't have anything that can move. Everything is just hammered down to the ground, covered in a thick goo. Seriously. I don't know how much this changed things, but I don't think it needed to be better. I think it was good already.
TLO, do you kind of have the same exact thoughts as Jinro?
Yeah, because when it wasn't instant, I at least sometimes missed units, but right now I can just, there are 20 more rollers, I will hit them all. Over and over again, until they're all dead.
Yeah.
Sean and Nony playing against Zergs in y'all's matchup. I mean, how big was fungal growth for you guys? Were you at all worried about it? I guess Sean when you played Terran, or Nony when you were playing a PVZ.
I'll let you go, Nony.
Well, I've never had a problem with fungal growth because I try to feed back the infestors. So, but now, I don't know how long does it take for neuroparasite to like, if you're at range 9 and they cast it, like how long until it works? Is it pretty slow? Like they send the little tentacle out.
Yeah, you can actually dodge it with a dropship. Of course, the unit will still get mind control, but it's slow enough that you can pick it up by the time you see the tentacle go.
Okay, yeah. So I mean,
so you still lose unit.
So
gets range.
Yeah, they have the same range now. Then the feedback and the neural parasite, but the feedback will cast faster. So I guess I think it's okay. If the Zerg had the advantage there, then I think it would really cause some problems. But now that Protoss just has to be make sure they're on top of their feedbacks, and they should be okay.
But if you feedback a unit, like if you cast your parasite and you get feedback at the same time, do you still lose hit points? Or does the mana go away immediately?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
I believe if you cast Neural Parasite, I believe you instantly lose the mana, but I'm not really sure.
I'm pretty sure you lose it instantly. I mean, either way, I mean, the Neural Parasite range I'm sort of okay with, just because, like, everyone's been saying you can snipe them so easily, but the fungal growth in Zerg vs. Terran, that's, like, the big thing I'm thinking about, where I'm just kind of like, oh my god. I mean, it excites me for Zerg vs. Zerg, because it definitely opens up some spellcaster possibilities, but it's a mirror matchup. It's never going to make anything imbalanced, right? You know, but Zerg vs. Terran, it's just like, wow, man, they really just hate infantry. They just want you to be able to kill infantry so easily, which is fine, which I'm fine with, because, you know, I play Zerg as well. And I guess I still feel like it's one of those changes that, though my gut says, wow, that definitely makes it super powerful. Like, they want people to use more fungal growth. It's also one of those things where I am one of the players who would spend, like, a month or two trying to be able to beat a strategy in Brood War, or to try to perfect a strategy. So I'm comfortable with the idea of not being able to defeat fungal growth until I've played a lot of games with it. So, I mean, I'm a little hesitant on it because it's not like a gigantic change. And I think that the big thing is that people are still doing one control group syndrome, where they just, like, box everything together, and they're like, go, army! And then it's in, like, a perfectly clustered circle, and they're like, dude, it's bullshit, EMP hits everything.
But
like, you made it perfect. You made it so, you like, begged your opponent to EMP this blob, or to fungal growth it.
But even when you spread out, like, if you manually spread your units, even if you do that, they still cluster really tightly together. I mean, the fungal growth AoE isn't that huge.
And Zerg has like 6 infestors anyways.
Yeah. I guess it becomes more work when you have to hit just 6 different points of the screen instead of going, okay, here's 30 units standing in a little cluster, I'll just spam the same spot 5 times and it'll be fine. I guess it's a bit of a difference, but...
Medevacs need to have, like, Restorate, like in Medics and before.
That would be nice.
Would you like Area Restorate?
Then it's just going to kind of turn into Warcraft 3 with all these spells.
I'd like to try to make a point. I don't know how eloquent I'm going to be with it.
Man, you crush every time you talk. You're just like, this is going to be awful.
All right, I'm going to enlighten everybody this time.
Yes.
100% confidence.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, I mean, in Brood War, there's definitely situations where, since we're all so experienced, there's certain parts of a matchup where like one player absolutely cannot engage the other player in a straight up fight, but they're still in the game. Like, they might not have map control, but if you ask like who's winning, you'd still say, well, if they fought a straight up battle right now, this guy would obviously lose, but he's not losing the game because he has all these other options. And I feel like in StarCraft 2, we're still feeling that out. And we kind of feel like, all right, if we have a straight up battle right now, who would win? Is there like some ability that would completely crush me in a straight up battle? If so, then I'm losing. And maybe that's not the case. Maybe people need to like kind of feel out what their other options are other than straight up battle. Because when we start talking about abilities like area effect abilities and I don't know, just all kinds of spells can really make a big difference in who comes out when two huge armies clash. But maybe it's not so imbalanced. I don't know.
That was so eloquently put and just had 100%.
Thank you very much, Sean Plott. Ignore all the I don't knows and maybes, and yeah, I was very confident.
Well, I mean, I love that point, because, I mean, especially in Terran vs. Zerg, I have seen very little dropship use. And, like, you get them to heal your Marine Marauder army. Of course you want to get medevacs, but I've seen so few drops, and Scourge don't exist anymore.
Well, everyone has 4 drops now.
But I mean, I'm talking about, like, Marine drops in the late game, when it's, like, 5 bases for Zerg on Metalopolis, and they just get 8 stim Marines and, like, rush to an expo.
Yeah, it's good. The problem I have with dropships is Hydras on creep. Dropships are really slow. Hydras attack really, really fast, and on creep they move incredibly quickly. So you have such a huge risk of losing your dropships when you drop. I mean, I still drop, but I feel like it's a bit like when the dropships in the original StarCraft, they were originally really slow, and they had to speed them up eventually. I don't know if they need to speed them up now, but... Yeah,
but I mean, even in Brood War, like, Zerg had Scourge, and like, all these other things that you could make the same argument with. I just feel like...
dropping is better now, of course.
But I just haven't seen anyone try it, like, a lot, like, aggressive dropship play. And I mean, in Zerg vs. Terran and Brood War, that was, like, the most standard thing in the world. It's like, okay, well, now he has to have drops, so I need to get Scourge, whether he chooses to or not. It was, like, one of the primary concerns for Zerg all game long.
Do you remember Moro versus Spox on Lost Temple?
Versus who?
I think Spox. I don't know how to
Oh, yeah, I call him Z-Pucks because, you know, it hurts my face to say it.
Well, didn't you cast that game?
Maybe.
Okay,
sounds reasonable.
There's a huge fight outside, like in the middle of Lost Temple. He gets his entire army trapped inside a corner. He has like 8 medivacs, loads everything up, shuttles into the Zerg main, barely defends his base. He has like 50 supply less in this battle, and comes back and wins. I thought you casted that.
I don't think so. That sounds awesome. I want to cast that. Send the rep. I need to do a day 9 daily on Sunday.
It was a couple of patches ago, but it was a fun game.
That's so awesome.
And it had a lot of dropship usage, as you said. Basically, he was so behind. It was when Terrans finally started whining about banelings. He was super behind, and basically dropships turned the game around for him.
So anyway.
The problem is, what I see is, you can counter that with Infestors as well. I had this one game where I was clearly losing, and Terran decided to drop with 9 medivacs, and I got fungal growth on his dropship where he couldn't drop his units, and just lost all of them because he couldn't move away.
It's painful to even hear about.
Serious? You can't. I thought it was just that you couldn't move. You just can't do anything.
No. You cannot load, but he was over a gap, so he couldn't unload.
Okay. Wow, that must have been a crazy hit then to hit him mid-air when he's over something.
But do you guys think it would be imbalanced if, like, at some stage in the game, a race is just supposed to get an ability that says, here, once you have this ability, if you're in a big fight on an open field, you're supposed to win every single time? Like, would that be imbalanced? Would that be bad for the game? Because I feel like that was all over StarCraft Brood War.
Yeah, that's like Dark Swarm. Yeah.
0.20.
Yeah.
Isn't the Dark Swarm 0.20 though? I mean, you could, well, I guess, I didn't play Terran in StarCraft 1, so I feel like, okay, I could still win against Dark Swarm as Protoss. It wasn't really fun, but I could if I had Reavers.
Of course it's fun. It's incredibly fun when you have... What are you talking about?
Fighting Ultralisks with Archons Underdog Swarm is not fun.
That's what the Reavers are for, man. Hide under your orange cloud all you want, man. I do 125 damage.
I think it's okay if it's like that, but...
I make good arguments.
I forget what I was going to say.
Sorry, I have that effect on people. Back to you, Jake.
All right, so we'll move on now to I think the only person that's played here on patch 9 is Jinro. TLO, I think you said you played a little bit, but I'm interested to see your thoughts on the new 1v1 map, Incineration Zone. I've heard a lot of complaints that the two bases are closer than they are on Steps of War, so it just results in a lot of really early and quick games on it. So I want to get your thoughts on the map if you've played it. And
I only played Lost Temple in the new patch because I'm playing White Raw on Lost Temple.
Oh, okay.
But it has a backdoor, so I immediately hate the map as a Terran player.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that people were crying about, the fact that it had a backdoor on it. TLO, have you played it all?
No. But I seriously believe maps with backdoors that the rocks should have more hit points than they have right now.
Instead of the 2,000, maybe like 3,000, or I think it's 2,000, but...
Yeah, 2,000 and I think 5,000 maybe would be better.
Right.
Or maybe some other form of, maybe like a timed, what do you call it, a timed barrier? Like it goes down and up at intervals. I don't know. Something.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
That's awfully complicated.
Yeah, that'd be cool to see in the map editor. I think kind of moving on towards, since no one's actually played Incineration Zone, we can't really talk about it too much, but the map editor...
Now.
Do what, Sean?
I'm trying to find it right now. I'll see if I can
I can link you.
And poke around.
Yeah.
Oh, it's super cramped. It's got like...
Yeah, it's really small.
Yeah.
And they're basically parallel from each other's bases, and I think there's expansions. There's 3 expansions on the top and 3 on the bottom, if I remember the picture correctly from the one time that I saw it.
I think I'm getting there. No, not yet.
All right. Well, while those two figure out the Incineration Zone, I'm looking forward to the map editor simply because of all the things that you can do with it. One of the really neat things that I saw is people are already building a bunch of the old StarCraft 1 maps simply because they can just I forgot it's like Map Legacy or something like that. And you simply just import the map from StarCraft 1 or Warcraft 3 and it builds it there. One of the only problems I've seen, though, is that with the StarCraft 1 maps, it imports mountains into hills for StarCraft 2, so that's kind of weird. But do you guys think that you're going to be using kind of the Blizzard maps for competitive play, or do you think that it's going to go the route of having these hardcore players create these maps for all the competitive users to play on? And we lost Nony. So I guess this is going to you, TLO, because Sean and Jinro are figuring out the map.
I don't know. I don't really have a lot of faith in the map creators of Blizzard right now. I really hope they don't listen to it. I don't know. I really don't like the maps we have around right now. And I do believe we will see a lot of custom made maps by the Korean map makers.
Right. I guess those were kind of the more famous. Well, Nony's still not back. Did you guys end up finding the map, Sean?
Yeah.
Wow. It's hard for me to see because I just have a mini map, but whatever. I'll just come back and talk about maps in general as I move my mic back, so hopefully you can hear me a little more clearly. But like with map design, I feel like the size of units relative to the size of terrain is like way smaller than in StarCraft. Because I mean, in StarCraft, like a maxed army couldn't fit on a screen, and it was like really spread out, and the battle sort of took place along this big wide arc. But in StarCraft 2, it's like my maxed army can fit in the screen, like easily, and I can't tell if that's because the screen size is a little bit bigger, if it's just zoomed out more, or if it actually is relevant. Because I mean, for instance, take the map Paranoid Android, which is like a really funky map. It has this narrow bridge, that the two bases are close by on. And across that narrow bridge, you can control huge flow of traffic, like between the two mains. It's really hard to push across there, save for some really early rushes. Whereas in StarCraft 2, like, there's a few maps that have a similar little choke, like Scrap Station is the map that looks almost exactly like Paranoid Android. But it's like a huge, wide open thing, and you can almost march your whole army forward no problem. So I feel like that map makers are going to play around a little bit more with constricting areas and create more key points of terrain, because I have not really had that, oh man, I need to control this point of terrain kind of feeling that I got from playing Brood War and StarCraft 1.
Well, it happens in Terran versus Terran, with the watchtowers, especially on perhaps...
Yeah, that's the one notable exception, I'd say.
Mm. But then, in that case, it almost becomes too much. Like, if someone controls the watchtower, you don't really have an opportunity to approach him unless you have an absolutely overwhelming force. And yeah, it's a bit problematic. Like, there's no middle ground. There's no like, oh, controlling this point would give me an advantage. It's a bit of a compounding problem from the fact that high ground is all or nothing. Like, either you have an absolutely unassailable position because it doesn't have vision, or you have a next to no advantage whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, Desert Oasis has a pretty good series of key points, like to the right of your gas geyser, or I guess I should say to the side of your gas geyser, and also the fact that whatever side you choose to exit your base from, you have to go up this huge ramp, and if you can control the high ground of that ramp outside that expo, then you're going to be in great shape for the like oncoming army. So I think that's pretty cool to be able to like contain on two sides, and then to have this freedom of movement through the middle.
Desert Oasis is probably my favorite new map, I think. Well, it's my favorite map.
That's the first person I've ever heard say.
Okay, I'm gonna add a but. It's my favorite map, except you have to get out of the early game. If you don't get out of the early game, it's a terrible map. And there's no good way of getting out of the early game for Terran Protoss, so it's a terrible map. But if they fix the natural, if you had like a reasonably placed natural, it would be a great map. It's the only map that's actually open enough for. Like every other map has these tiny areas. This map has these huge expanses and these huge distances between bases. I think it's easily the best StarCraft 2 map. Like, takes full advantage of the new mobility and everything like that.
So would you think to be a good idea if you have destructible rocks at the narrow entrance to your natural, like on the new scrap station? You have two ways to your natural as well, but they now block the narrow entrance with destructible rocks as well.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And that would be a great solution.
That'd be fancy.
All right, so maybe someone listening can go and test that out, maybe edit that in with the map editor now since it is out. But I want to go ahead and move on since the show is kind of running a little bit long, and we did have a ton of questions asked, a great response from the Team Liquid community. So I want to get some of these questions out there. First off, this one's directed at Nony, and he says, to Nony, I've heard that your use of Phoenix rather effectively in your PvZ from time to time. Blah, 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 blah. I'm interested in your thoughts and how in your plays, I'm currently missing something important in its uses.
To me, the Phoenix in PvZ, the way I've been using it is when I see an advantage, or when I see an opportunity to get it, or if I have an advantage and I'm trying to hold on to the advantage, then that's when the Phoenix comes into play. I really rarely get it as a standard thing anymore. I tried to do that for a while, where I just automatically get Phoenix against certain builds, and it just didn't really work. But I have found that when I get ahead, I can get a group of Phoenix, and it really screws with the Zerg. So I'd suggest just be patient and keep your eyes open for opportunity to throw down a Stargate, especially if you're kind of high on Chrono Boost. If you which isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes, you have nothing good to use it on. If you do have a lot of it saved up, and you could just like get a bunch of Phoenix really quick with constant Chrono Boost, it could work really well for you.
All right, that was from F Trunks. I forgot to say his name. Everything that I said, I didn't say in the middle, is just his experiences with it and how he kind of sees the flaws and advantages of it. But moving on, let's see. Black Octopi asked several questions, so I'll take a few of him. I'm not going to ask all of them because he did have about 6 or 7. But he wants to ask, how viable do you consider tech switching for races other than Zerg? So we'll start with Jinro. How viable is tech switching for a Terran?
Can you repeat the question? I somehow blanked out.
Yeah, he's just asking, how viable do you consider tech switching for other races than Zerg?
I mean, you have to define what you mean tech switch. Do you mean like I open one thing and transition into something else, or I change my tech just to surprise him? I mean,
yeah, I think he means like going from something, say, like bio to tech or mech or something like that. He doesn't really specify exactly.
Well, I think transitioning from mech into bio is great. I mean, I like using it for almost every matchup, actually. I think transitioning from like a Hellion opening or a Hellion 4 into Mass Marauder Marine is an excellent way of playing Terran versus Zerg, because when you go, the 4 is great in low number battles. You can cover your ground weakness as well as your air weakness, and the Hellion is obviously great against Zerglings, so you have this covered. But when the game scales up, you get more and more units. I find mech somewhat lacking, and I want to get Marauders. So I think there's a great transition, a great tech switch from going mech into bio, as soon as you have your expansion up and secured.
All right, Nony, what do you think about Protoss tech switching?
Well, the thing about Zerg tech switching is the reason they're so good at it is they have, a universal production facility, which is the larva. It can just make anything, so you just put one tech building up and then you can use all your larvae for that new unit. So they get these really swift tech switches, and if you look at the Protoss production facilities in Starcraft 2, I think they can build a lot of stuff really quick, especially with Chrono Boost. And so, for example, if I have like 4 warp gates or something, and then I'm like, I want to switch to a much more heavy robotics facility army, I can get 2 robotics facilities and use all of my Chrono Boost on them and really spend almost all of my money on the robotics facilities and kind of stop using the warp gates. And it's fine. It works. And so I think in StarCraft 2 for Protoss, tech switching is a lot more viable just because these production facilities are insane with how many units they can crank out. The amount of units that you can build compared to the cost of the production facilities, it really feels like a good ratio. So, and as far as tech switching being good as a strategy, it certainly is. There's definitely a lot of times where if you
Oh, I think we just lost Nony again mid-talk. So we'll get back to him.
Didn't have enough bandwidth to upload that confident opinion.
Is he said something? Oh,
Am
he's
I
back.
here?
Oh, what's up, Nony?
And he's back.
Okay. Well, that's pretty much. I don't know how much you heard, but, I think it's viable. I think it's good for Protoss. It can be done.
All right. Sean or Little One, do you guys have feelings about tech switching for any other races?
You go first.
Yeah, well,
Sorry.
I believe Nony and Jinro covered the topic pretty well.
All right. Sean, do you have anything you want to add in?
Tech switching is one of these words that just strikes me as an imaginary concept. It's one of these words that gets thrown around the forums a lot and, eventually loses meaning, because to me, the question is, how do I not die right now? I don't really know. Yeah, okay, let me try to collect my brain a little bit here. So this idea of tech switching, I think a lot of people on the forums, you'll see that they have this idea that if I'm going this, can I suddenly start going this? Am I allowed to do that? But the real underlying question is why? Because, if you look at Terran versus Zerg in Brood War, Terran is just making a lot of Marines and science vessels and just, continuing to do that for the whole game until he has enough economy to start putting tanks in there. And is that like a tech switch? Well, I wouldn't really call it that because there's no need for Terran to really switch tech. He can just do this really strong, solid type army. And occasionally you'll see players, do these massive switches to tank Vulture, and it looks fancy and it's suave, and it just doesn't matter to me whether or not there's no underlying structure that says, can you tech switch or can you not tech switch? The answer is, Zerg has no mobility with his defilers once you have this really mobile marine vessel force. So now you have freedom to do something that you would have otherwise not wanted to do. I don't know. I think that a better question is if you want to do some composition that you think is strong, how do you advance to that point? If you want to do something Templar Colossus combination, the question shouldn't be, can I switch back and forth between you two? It's what order do I go in order to get everything up without dying to that final point?
Yeah, I agree with Sean here. It seems like the tech switch is just kind of an arbitrary, if you significantly change your composition enough in a short enough amount of time, then that's a tech switch. And it's really arbitrary. It's not something that really matters.
Because, I think I especially note that the question askers mentioned excluding Zerg, as though Zerg is this race that is inherently tech switchable because they can swap out larva composition. And I think that the best example of this, where I think that the word tech switched, this imaginary notion of tech switching is misused, is in reference to mech in Zerg vs. Terran, where they say, oh yeah, if you're making a bunch of Hydras, you can tech switch to Mutalisks, and then all of a sudden he has to make Goliaths. And all you have to do is not say the word tech switch, and you're saying the correct thing, If you're making a bunch of Hydralisks, you can make Mutalisks, and he's forced to make Goliaths. And the important thing is the idea that you are screwing up your opponent's unit composition by skewing your own unit composition in this particular circumstance. The lesson to be learned is not, tech switching is good. Because again, tech switching is this imaginary concept, this blanket statement that people are trying to apply to all these different things, when really what they should do is look at each individual thing and say, okay, what's really going on here?
Well, I think you make a really good point, but I think Nony actually brought up something. Tech switching in Starcraft 2 has been somewhat... Okay, now I'm using the word tech switching again.
Damn you.
You have an easier time adapting your tech because of Chronoboost and because of the universally shared tech labs that you need for every Terran tech, basically. So while, as you said, tech switching might be a bit of a made-up term, there's still been some changes in Starcraft 2 that facilitate tech switching. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I would say that it's very easy to make a different kind of unit without having to have a very well thought out transition.
Yeah.
And I prefer that use because it brings up the idea of a transition, which is a period where you're trying not to die. Because that really was the heart it is the heart of all good strategy, is being able to, account for these, how do I go from the early game to the mid game plan that I have. And, chrono boosting and mules and all this larva vomiting. That does give you all these opportunities to switch around to a lot of different things and make many possibilities available at one point in time. Whereas, in Brood War, you're okay, I see a bunch of Medic Marine Science Vessel, no Goliaths coming anytime soon, so I'm not even thinking about them. Yeah.
All right. I think we answered that question very well, so we'll move on.
Man, we answered the shit out of that guy's question.
Awesome. So Bear4188 wants to ask, what do you think about the one hotkey syndrome? Is it an actual problem or just people failing to properly acclimate to a more powerful UI, i.e. just doing it because they can? And also, do you think StarCraft 2 has a good future for micro ahead? We'll ask, let's go with Jinro.
I'm going to answer the second part first, and I think it has an excellent future in terms of micro ability. Even now, if you watch some of the Warcraft 3 players on Europe, like the Muslim or Luciferin, they have absolutely sick Marauder control. I think there's room to do so much impressive stuff with this. Anyway, the first part of the question was what again?
He's basically asking, what do you think about the one hotkey syndrome, i.e. just selecting all your units and putting them on Control 1? Or...
Well, I've personally been moving away from it more and more. I started out hotkeying everything too close to the left side of the keyboard, so I ran out of groups and had to key things together. I obviously think it's bad, but I think it's better than the alternative, which was in late game Starcraft 1, where you couldn't key everything. I mean, you have more control if everything is keyed together than if you have half your army keyed and the rest, like, bunched up, have to move them manually.
All right. Nony, do you have thoughts about the one hotkey syndrome?
I think it's something that it's just one of those things where newbie players have an option that's easier but worse, and advanced players have an option that's harder to control, but it'll have a better result. And so I think people are definitely overusing the unlimited unit selection and unlimited unit binding to a hotkey, and people are just being kind of lazy with it, and that'll probably change. You'll see it'll pretty much be standard for Platinum players to use some more hotkeys than they're currently using, I think.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the general consensus above the high-level players, that obviously it's really bad, and obviously they're not going to be doing it as the game evolves and gets older and as they get better players. So we'll go ahead and move on to the...
I just thought of something, though. Sorry to interrupt, but...
Oh, go ahead.
I'm having a bit of trouble using the right side of the hotkeys, like 8, 9, and so on. I just realized why. Every single unit shortcut is on the left side of the keyboard.
Yeah.
So it's really...
Yeah,
I mean, it was so natural in StarCraft 1. When I played Protoss, I had my left hand like at the P key for probes and used my pinky for zealots and so on. Well, now I have my entire hand on the left side of the keyboard, and I find I don't want to use these hotkeys on the right.
Yeah.
They're so far away.
I mean, I think that's just Blizzard's, and I think Blizzard has come out and said this, probably not verbatim, but they've just said that they're trying to make the game more casually friendly to a larger audience. But, I mean, you said you prefer kind of the StarCraft 1 way of hotkeying things. Do you think that a way of making custom binds in StarCraft 2 is something that Blizzard should possibly do in the future?
They should definitely do it. But I don't know if I prefer the StarCraft 1 way as much as I've done the StarCraft 1 way for 10 years, and it's hard to change.
So it's just ingrained in your basically
but they
your muscle
definitely
movements.
should do. Yeah, they definitely should do custom keys, and I'm surprised they haven't already. I mean, it took 1 week for the Chinese to make a cracked custom key editor. Literally 1 week, probably less.
Right. I wonder if they have a reason for not doing it. I can't really think of one off the top of my head, but...
Well, I have one. It's the beta. I'd probably say that.
Well, they said it wasn't going to be in for release, so I'm thinking it might be, like, if a Chinese cracker does it, he doesn't have to have any kind of testing for it. I mean, it's free.
Well, I mean,
it's something
the hotkeys are just, like, in a file. You can, like, open them up right now and change them if you please.
Yeah, but if someone that's not Blizzard makes a way of changing the hotkeys easily, it doesn't really matter if it's buggy or if it's ugly. I mean, and Blizzard does it, they have to probably jump through 5 billion different lines of approval and so on.
Yeah, I mean, they implemented some different hotkey setups, I think, in patch 9. I didn't look at it too closely, so I can't cite specific examples of what they actually did. But I think a full-on customization is something that competitive players will probably be doing regardless of if Blizzard is actually going to be putting it in themselves. Yeah, Nony will be back. He knows how to recall the call by himself, so he'll be on whenever he gets in. Sean?
They did say at the conference that, that's definitely something they want to have incorporated as customizable hotkey setups. Not, customizable macros or anything like that, but definitely the setups.
Play the game for me. Click. So, anyways, we'll go ahead and move on to some more questions. Let's see. Okay, this one is from Rock. It seems all Protoss matchups revolve around early gateways and robo units. Eventually, there's a tech to High Templar. In the vast majority of games, Phoenixes, Void Rays, DTs, Carriers, and the Mothership aren't even tech to. Protoss is essentially staying competitive, using half of their tech tree. Do you think this is a problem that Blizzard needs to address, or will the metagame eventually shift to involve the entire Protoss tech tree as people gain more experience? And I think he answered his own question, really.
Can I take this?
Yeah, feel free.
This is why you lose to Marauders. This is why you think Marauders are imbalanced. Because you're not using anything else.
Right.
Like, the problem, Terran vs. Protoss is not... Robo openings are fine, but Marauders do extremely poorly against so many other openings, like Zealot Sentry, the 4 Warp Gate builds. Robo units are not the be-all, end-all of Protoss. Dark Templars are fine. Wildjar is showing this in almost every PvG place. Actually, I'm really scared of having to play his Dark Templar style.
Yeah, we saw those yesterday against TLO.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was terrible.
You know what? Let's not talk about that. I think Dario, we had a soft spot for him. But so, I mean, I think, like you said earlier, he pretty much answers the question. Sean, I think you were kind of saying the same thing I was, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't have that much of a concern about it at all. Because, I mean, like, Protoss vs. Zerg, right when Starcraft came out, I highly doubt any players, maybe even here, who, like, were playing Starcraft 1 back in, like, 98 and 97. No, it came out in 98. Way, way long ago when it first came out, all Protosses did was just get more gateways. They would Zealot Rush, and then they would get a third gateway, then they would get Dragoons, and they would get the fourth gateway, and get range for Dragoons, and just keep attacking with Zealots and Dragoons. And that's how all Protoss vs. Zergs were. And then, Lurkers came out. Oh, well, I gotta go to a box facility and get Observers so my Zealots and Dragoons can kill it. And then that was like the biggest tech switch. Oh my god. And there were discussion forums about how can you avoid the robotics facility. Oh, you can kill them earlier. Oh, you can get a Templar Archives and Mind Control and Overlord. I mean, it was like crazy the sorts of stuff that people did just to force this 4-gateway style to work. And then, of course, it eventually changed and kept changing and changing and changing until we got to something similar to today.
Well, you missed a brilliant opportunity to make a joke about how that's how Protoss still plays.
Well, I mean, like, because players started 2-gating and then saying, well, instead of adding a third gateway and then going for all these Dragoons, because I don't think I can break that sunk line, I'm gonna tech up to some Zealots with speed. And then try to break it. And then as that started to work, well, let me try to get this expansion up and try to cut back, on my gateways a little bit more, and then maybe get some Templar. Then all of a sudden we have some real builds starting to develop, but that even took like over a year to even get to the point where, something similar to what we see today was happening at all. So, it just doesn't bother me. I mean, even I think that Blizzard's rapid patching is kind of making people a little bit too addicted to the idea that Blizzard has a whole bunch of knobs, and if they just turn the right ones and poop the right patch out, all problems will be solved. When really, like, weeks and weeks need to pass by for enough, data to be gathered to, make really reasonable changes.
Right. And I mean, leading on, that's actually the kind of the next thing that this person is asking. Aravan is saying, how balanced do you think the game is right now? Do you think it's going to undergo major changes, i.e. the high ground advantage possibly being changed, or only minor tweaks, unit damage, etc.? What do you guys think StarCraft 2 is balanced right now, or how balanced is it?
Can I take that?
Sure. I like that one's so nice. Go ahead.
I don't really believe we can tell already how balanced StarCraft 2 is, because the meta game is going to change so much in the next few weeks. We had StarCraft Protoss not patched for maybe, 7 years? I don't know the numbers, but Protoss vs. Zerg changed so strongly, and I believe we will see the same changes in StarCraft 2 as well. There's just no way to tell it right now.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you too. Jinro or Nony, you guys were typing away in chat there. Do you guys have anything to say?
I think, I think the game, I kind of agree with the little one's point, but I think the problem will be later on for Blizzard with these balance changes is that they want every unit in the game to be useful. They want every ability to be useful, at least to some extent. They don't want something to be completely useless and ignored and never come into play ever. So the game might be balanced, but if certain units aren't ever being used, then Blizzard is still going to continue to make changes so that all the units are balanced with other units and not just the races being balanced with races.
Yeah, I think he actually, that user needs to watch a couple of the Little One games, because it seems like every time I see him play, he just uses some crazy unit. No one has ever seen it before, but it works. So I think he's, Dario, probably one of the few users right now who's kind of utilizing everything StarCraft 2 has to offer, which in the long run, I think a lot of people are going to end up doing as well. So props to you, I guess. But Sean, you were going to say something?
Oh, no, it totally wasn't.
Oh, okay.
I was going to do.
Oh, okay.
Something Nony said. Nony said they don't want any units to be useless, or what you want to call it. But from what I've heard and what they've done to the Archon, I mean, I've heard that they are fine with some units being used. Well, you make it in a very niche situation, or you make it if you run out of mana. I mean, I don't think the goal is to have every unit see use in every game. This is just what I've heard.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and the way they talk about the Archon, like, I don't even consider it a unit anymore.
So sad. The best units in StarCraft 1 turned into this joke.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to another question. Zelnick, we got like probably 2 or 3 here. So Zelnick is asking, he wants us to talk about I'm sure we could probably talk about this for a while, but he wants us to talk about the high ground issue, especially now with Blizzard's direct response being the high ground mechanic. They like how it is now. According to Dustin Browder, it gives a clear advantage at first, and then it eventually disappears. That's from the fan site Q&A. Personally, he thinks this specific response was the most disappointing response he's heard from Blizzard for a long time, and he really hopes someone can get them to understand why it is an issue. So, Sean, why don't you go ahead and start talking about this first?
That's not what he said. That's misrepresenting him, I think, because what he said is we like the way it feels, and we like that it is clear when the advantage is there, and that there are situations where it is also clear when that advantage is gone. He liked that high ground wasn't always strict advantage, that it had the ability to be a huge advantage that was very clear, or that there was no huge benefit, which was also clear, you know. He just liked the... Huh?
Go ahead.
Wait, how's the original wording of that? In that question?
He says... You mean the quote from Browder?
Yeah, because it made it sound like Dustin Browder liked that the advantage eventually went away, and he did not say that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is actually verbatim, because it's actually worded kind of poorly. It says, high ground mechanic... they like how it is now. According to Dustin Browder, it gives a clear advantage at first, and then it eventually disappears. So I think it gives a clear advantage is probably the direct quote.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that everyone listening doesn't think that Dustin Browder is like, yeah, I love it when people have an advantage for 20 seconds and then it's gone. You know, it's not like he likes that it's eventually going to go away. Instead, he just likes that there are two distinct situations that can happen. It was the impression that I got, and pretty much how I worded it. But, you know, it's one of those things where I'm going to accept it. I'm very clearly going to just be cool with it because I'm the player. I'm supposed to play instead of, you know, saying I want it to be more StarCraft 1-like, because there are a lot of situations that have happened as a result of this high ground mechanic that I was just kind of like, ooh, isn't that interesting that I have this feeling now from StarCraft 2 where I had my whole army on Metalopolis, and I was steering really far away from his edge, and I was going, wow, yeah, because I can't see up there, and he can just rape my whole army if I'm kind of remotely close to that. Now I'm very leery of cliffs and edges, and I think that we're going to see a lot of really interesting things happen with just big patches of high and low ground land next to each other. I mean, with StarCraft, it was a lot of, you know, small cliffs and narrow pathways, and here's like, oh, here's a little rock that's blocking vision, but if you see over, your tank can hit something useful. I think that it just creates more interesting stuff, and I just think that, you know, it means you need to have more defense in certain situations, but that also you have more awesome stuff to exploit in other situations, and I'm delighted to have that sort of trade-off. I don't have any issue with that at all.
Yeah.
I think.
Go ahead.
I think the grass and other grass or smoke mechanics work the same way, and I think it's. I don't know if you've seen White Star against the Muslim, but in the middle of the battle, they're fighting on steps of Go for SC2 from ESL. They're fighting on steps of war, and there's these grass patches. and they're right in the middle of it. And in the middle of the battle, the Muslim loses vision of the other side of the grass, and every unit he has tries to walk through the grass to see, but they can't, so they just can't fire. Everything just dies. I think that's an interesting...
Yeah, that is.
Interesting quirk of the new mechanic.
Yeah, that happened to me when I was actually playing you on Steps of War. That
it was confused our games maybe.
It was Terran versus Terran, and I was trying to mech with a bunch of tanks.
Oh yeah.
You had your marauders behind the grass, and I was like, well, just try to walk forward and see them. And I think I killed like a marauder and lost like 50 food. It was pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, it was usually 15 tanks, and I killed it with like a control group of marauders.
Nony, you're going to say something?
No, I was not. I don't know. I'm kind of tired of this issue.
Yeah, see, I'm like going off the lights blinking. But I think one thing that a lot of people aren't really considering is, Sean kind of said one point of it is that this isn't StarCraft 1, it's StarCraft 2. And on that same point, I think once people start utilizing this map editor, you're going to see a lot more things come into play where things like you were just describing where the bush is and people where you were right at the front of them and he couldn't get through and see them. And also this high ground advantage. So I think once people start utilizing the map editor and you see these examples on these maps to where it creates these really unique situations for both the players and also a spectator to watch, where it makes the game just that much more fun or endless, really, because from what I've seen of the map editor, there's just so many different things, so many different variables that people are going to be able to throw into maps. And I think people are really quick to judge StarCraft 2 it's the successor to StarCraft 1. It's not StarCraft 1. So I think people need to kind of think about that. But does anyone else have any thoughts about that, or are we done recording this long-ass podcast?
If you can't revert to the way StarCraft 1 was, which is fine, do you think it would be, specifically for siege tanks and perhaps other units that have a longer attack than they have vision range, do you think it would be fine if a siege tank on high ground could see its full 13 clicks of the range? Would that be an acceptable advantage if you had a longer sight range from high ground?
So, are you saying like he could attack into the fog if he saw something, but you wouldn't see it, or?
Well, a siege tank has, when in siege mode, it has 13 range, right?
Right, but you can't see that far. Yeah.
So I was thinking if you were on a cliff, you'd have one click added to your sight or something.
Yeah.
Or your range, I don't know.
I mean, that what would be the? I think if you added that to Terran, do you think that would just be specific for that race, or would you? There's not really anything like a siege tank.
Gain relevance, I guess.
That's true. Because right now it is kind of not the StarCraft 1 tank, so.
Yeah, big games, except when you have 20.
Right. All right.
Go ahead.
No. I was going to wrap it up, so feel free to talk.
Oh, you can wrap it up. It was.
All right. This is probably one of the longest ones I've recorded, so we still got to do everyone's like self-promotion thing. So Sean, you can go ahead and start with you since you cast a billion different things. I'm not sure what you're going to specifically say.
I do a billion things. You'll probably hear me eventually, but I guess the big one is the Day 9 Daily at livestream.com/StriderDoom. Or I've been uploading all my videos to Blip TV. So if you go there and just look up my name, Sean Plott, you should find my channel with all my videos, and you can download them there. Ooh, and you can play them on your iPod. Technology.
All right. So for the players, I guess, you could shout out your sponsors. You can shout out to your girlfriend. I don't really care, but everyone's going to do one. So, Nony, go ahead and do your shout outs.
Team Liquid. The team, not the website, but the website too. Sure, let's throw that in there. I love you all. That's it.
All right. Jinro, your turn.
Well, I feel like I've talked enough, so I'm going to copy Nony. I just shout out to Team Liquid, StarCraft 2 forum, which I've moderated for 3 years. It's been interesting, to say the least.
All right. And TLO, you want to do a little shout out to your fan club out there that you... I thought it was kind of funny that you didn't even know you had so many fans in the U.S.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you. I really like your support, and I hope you keep rooting for me. But I'd also like to do a shout out to my old clan, IPS, Intelligent Playing System, an awesome German clan. and which really helped me get my skills up.
All right, Sean. So there you go. It's not ISP. It's IPS confirmed. So you don't mess it up.
Yeah. And if you want to watch TLO, I'll probably be casting.
Right. So on that, we will be casting TLO versus the little one tomorrow. It won't be live tomorrow, but
Cthulhu Luck versus Little One?
Yeah, what did I say?
TLO versus Little One.
Oh, yeah, you're going to be playing yourself. That'll be a great game. But anyways, so yeah, TLO versus Cthulhu Luck for the MLG Showcase Series. It will not be live, but we have been getting a bunch of small updates there, so we will be going live sometime soon, although I've been saying that every week, but still pushing for that. Let's see. I think that about covers it. So we'll be back possibly next week. We've gotten kind of lucky. There's been a patch every time we've done a show. So maybe for the next show, if we have no patch, we can go into some more specific matchups. But thanks, everyone, for joining in. Sean, Nony, Jinro, and the little one, thanks for coming on. And thank you guys for listening. So we will be back next week with another cast.